On this night in 1966, an actress went on a TV show to promote a sitcom she was starring in. Not an original idea, I know, but what happened next changed toy history, because she and the host played a very original game. And soon, the studio audience was in stitches and the players tied up in knots. This is the Twister edition of Where's the Fun From? Reyn Guyer is the originator of Twister, which was promoted as a stocking feet game by Milton Bradley when it was released in 1966. Fitting when you consider that Reyn wasn't trying to revolutionize games, he was trying to get people to buy more shoe polish. Reyn was named after his father, who in 1957 founded the Reynolds Guyer Incorporated Agency of Design to create in-store displays and product packaging. Reyn joined his father in the business, and soon the company boasted a client list that included Pillsbury, Kraft Foods, and 3M. The direction of the company would forever change when Reyn started working on a back-to-school promotion for a shoe polish made by another client, Johnson Wax. It was common at the time for consumers to send in box tops from a product to receive a premium gift in the mail. In noodling an idea for Johnson Wax, Reyn came up with a game that required kids to take off their shoes in order to play.
I went out in the bullpen with all the artists, and I took out a large piece of corrugated board, and I drew a grid on it with foot squares. 4 by 6 was all it would accommodate. So there were 24 squares, and then I asked 8 artists, secretaries, and they were supposed to go across this grid. By the time we got 10 minutes into the game, nobody could stand still because they were laughing so hard. Just putting people that close, in that proximity to one another, was magic.
He called it King's Footsie because it was a multiplayer chess-like game where you leaned and bumped on each other, stepping only on your color in an attempt to get across the board first.
When we put all these people on the board together, we were breaking some new ground. We could see that the game board didn't have to be on a table. The game board could be on the floor, and the people could be the playing pieces.
Reyn decided that this game was no mere box top premium, this was a retail product. He convinced his father to back the venture into Toyland and take a gamble on a game. And the Guyers already knew the company they were going to bring it to. In 1965, 3M was famous for Scotch tape, but it also made a line of high-end bookshelf games. Since King's Footsie had echoes of chess writ large, Reyn took the game to them in the hopes that they'd add it to their classic line. Although the team thought it was fun, the consensus was this was a party game and didn't fit 3M's upmarket customer base. Around this time, a salesman for a silk screening company named Chuck Foley visited the office and saw the King's Footsie game mat. Then he asked about it. Chuck had toy experience, having worked for Lakeside Toys, the company famous for Gumby and Pokey figurines and the classic Barrel of Monkeys game. If Reyn and his father were going to make a push into games, they couldn't have asked for a more fortuitous meeting. Foley was hired and convinced the Guyers to also hire a friend, Neil Rabens, a talented artist who had worked for a pool company called Doughboy Industries. Rabens refined the game's targets from squares to dots and contributed the genius addition of players placing not just their feet but their hands on the game mat too. When Foley suggested rearranging the dots in rows so that the players got more entwined and a spinner as a randomizer, the game really took shape. They dubbed it Pretzel, the game that ties you up in knots. From there, they developed 8 other mat games that you played with stocking feet with names like Bump, Safari, and Pantomimic. Reyn and Chuck next went to where games were born. Milton Bradley. Mel Taft was Milton Bradley's Senior Vice President of Research and Development, and he singled out Pretzel as a game he wanted to license after seeing test players collapse in fits of laughter. But then the hurdles began. Mel found that the name Pretzel was already trademarked by Transogram for a toy dog it had released in 1963. Many other names were kicked around until the team landed on Twister. Reyn thought that the new name might just end the game.
And when I heard the name Twister, I thought, oh, that wouldn't be my first choice. That Twister implies tornadoes, and if you live in the Midwest, twisters they're very dangerous things and to be avoided. It's a funny thing. Once people begin to identify the object with that name, it doesn't make any difference. That's the name.
If the problem with the name was just a bump in the road, then the growing number of finger-wagging critics was like a brick wall for Twister to get over. Both Reyn and Chuck told me that if it wasn't for Mel Taft, Twister never would have happened. Mel was long retired when I interviewed him in 2002, but he vividly remembered the challenge of getting Twister made and the fun of Twister being played.
The internal people were saying, Jesus, Mel, all you're doing is trying to pack sex in a box, charge for it. So I took the thing home. We had friends over. I think we had 3 other couples. To be sure, maybe we had 1 or 2 drinks at that point before supper. We got playing the thing, and I got to laughing so hard that I damn near had appendicitis. I was rolling on the floor, screaming with laughter. It was worth its weight in gold. I realized that adults could have that much fun with something. It really had to be good, so somehow we had to get it in the hands of consumers.
But first, Milton Bradley had to get it on store shelves. Twister hit the scene as a totally original game. Fearing that consumers wouldn't get it, Milton Bradley gambled on the filming of a full 1-minute TV ad that showed how to play the game from start to finish.
You gotta play Twister in your stocking feet, standing on this crazy colored sheet. That's Twister, yeah, Twister.
But before the TV ad could even air, Twister faced another major hurdle. The toy buyer for Sears thought the game was too risque and refused to stock it. Sears was the dominant retailer of the day and accounted for 1% of the entire U.S. economy. 2/3 of Americans shopped there in 1966. With Sears out, Twister was over. Mel called Reyn to break the bad news. Milton Bradley was pulling their TV spots, but their PR firm was already paid, so they continued to try to book it on shows. No one knew it at the time, but Twister was about to become famous.
From New York, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson.
On May 3rd, 1966, Johnny Carson and his glamorous guest that night, Ava Gabor, were at the height of their popularity. Carson attracted 10 million viewers a night and was just hitting his stride, entering the 5th year of hosting the landmark talk show. Ava Gabor was starring in the hit CBS show Green Acres at the time, and throughout the year graced magazine covers, was written about in newspapers, and guest starred in multiple TV shows. Gabor had a great sense of humor and proved to be a good sport, which proved to be very good luck for Twister. The sight of a slightly embarrassed Johnny Carson and the refined Ava Gabor on all fours sent Johnny's studio audience into hysterics. It was soon apparent that the home audience had the same reaction because Twister started to sell. Mel told me that 25,000 calls flooded the switchboard at NBC that night, and so the game was played a second time on The Tonight Show. It was played on The Mike Douglas Show, and even showed up in Japan. You know a game is a phenomenon when it starts showing up in advertisements for other products. Over 3 million Twister games were sold in 1966, and the buyer at Sears, he decided the game wasn't that risque after all. Milton Bradley promoted the games to kids in Fort Lauderdale and even promised more soaring sales in this industry print ad. A new TV ad was shot and ran for a few weeks, but then had to be pulled again, this time to give Milton Bradley's factory time to ramp up production. Local celebrity demonstrations and contests took place. Jim Shea, the president of Milton Bradley, was quoted in this article as saying that 40,000 games a day wasn't enough to fill Christmas orders, and that Twister had set sales records never before attained by any single toy or game made by Milton Bradley. It wasn't a surprise then when tons of mat games and stand-up physical games came out after Twister. Trying to keep all these competitors at bay, Milton Bradley released a bunch of these games too. A kid's version called Animal Twister was released in 1967, as well as the pantomimic game that Guyer and Foley pitched to Milton Bradley, released as a game called Body English. Through the late 60s and early 70s, all these games came and went, but Twister remained a hit with kids and adults. Sales came back down to earth in the 70s, but surged once again in the 80s with new TV campaigns like this classic.
You reach, you stretch, you balance and twist. You try it once, you'll get the gist.
and one in 1985 featuring a humorous endorsement from Rodney Dangerfield.
Well, when do I get to play?
In a minute, Rodney.
Yeah, I heard that an hour ago.
Not yet, Rodney.
Well, I brought the game and I want to play.
Rodney, not now.
Well, if I can't play Twister, then get your own game.
As a fan of the history of toy design, this channel is my attempt to sort out fact from fiction and tell a compelling but accurate story. As with many other smash hits in the toy industry, there can be disagreements about credit, and this story is no different. Because while Twister was exploding in popularity in 1966, behind the scenes a disagreement was brewing over credit and compensation. According to Foley, when he was hired, Reyn Guyer Sr. promised him a royalty on everything he created, and then reneged on the deal, causing a rift that was eventually settled out of court. After the fallout, Foley, Rabens, and a partner named Charlie McCarthy formed their own toy and game development company. In many articles on Twister, Chuck contended that he and Neil were the sole inventors of the game. In my opinion, the simplistic narrative that he and Rabens had all the ideas and Reyn got all the money lacks perspective. As of the recording of this video, Twister's Wikipedia page states that Foley had an idea for utilizing people as game pieces as part of the game idea. That's just not true. In fact, in my book Timeless Toys, I interviewed Reyn, Chuck, and Neil, as well as former designer Don Dale and former art director Pete Poloni of Reyn Guyer Incorporated, and they all confirmed the existence of King's Footsie before Chuck and Neil were hired. Neil posted this to my Facebook wall in 2014, quote, "You were correct in your comment about King Footsie preceding Twister. Guyers had several Mac games on the board when I came on the scene in 1965, and they all consisted of people being the playing parts. I still maintain, though, that Foley and I came up with Pretzel, aka Twister, with the hand and foot concept." When the Twister patent was filed in April of 1966, Charles F. Foley and Neil W. Rabens were the only names on it, and they assigned all their rights to Milton Bradley. The company presumably assisted in the filing as well, as the artwork used in the patent matches the artwork on the original game. I've spoken to people who assume because Reyn's name is not on the patent, he couldn't have contributed to the creation of Twister. The truth is that when the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issues a patent, they will list the names of the inventors that were listed on the application. They never ask if any names are missing, and sometimes they even list people who didn't invent the toy. For instance, the patent for Operation lists Marvin Glass as one of the inventors. From my conversations with Mel Taft and others, he wasn't. The patent for Etch-a-Sketch lists Arthur Grandjean as the inventor. Arthur was the inventor's accountant who happened to file the paperwork with the patent office. So the patent for Twister lists Chuck and Neil, as it absolutely should. But it also lists the description of their invention as an apparatus for playing a game wherein the players constitute the game pieces. King's Footsie was the game that originated players as game pieces. But not only that, it was designed to be played in stocking feet, on a mat on the floor, and designed so that players were uncomfortably close to one another during play, which creates all the humor. All these magic elements are present in the Twister game. And so Reyn Guyer should have had his name on the patent along with Neil and Chuck. All three had a hand in its invention. And while we're spreading some credit, let's not forget Mel Taft. Take any one of these talented playmakers out of the equation, the game we know as Twister never happens. But thank goodness it did. Over the years, many Twister variants have been released, capitalizing on a game that has become a brand synonymous with laughter and upbeat active fun. In 2015, country music star Thomas Rhett celebrated the release of his album Tangled Up by breaking the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest Twister mat, which took up half of the Dallas Cowboys football field at AT&T Stadium and was built with 900 Twister mats. And that same year, Twister was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame. Today, the fun continues, as evidenced by all the players filming themselves playing Twister on TikTok. And if you know your left from your right and your primary colors, you can join in on the contortive fun too. Lay out the vinyl mat and grab some friends. Soon you'll be ready to twist, reach, and laugh all over again. Because after 60 years, Twister still ties us up in knots and keeps us in stitches. Thanks for watching. Please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to this channel. Your support helps make possible our deep dive research into the greatest playthings ever. Windsor Concepts sponsored this video. Until next time, remember, life is short, seize the play.